right, your gay sports fanatic here. Welcome. Thank you for joining me for another installment. I'm so excited. We've got week one of college football. And I'm going to make some predictions and some thoughts on five or six key games this weekend. Before I do that, I'm going to tell you a couple stories so you can kind of put some of my predictions in context. So, cut to many years ago, I lived in Fort Dodge, Iowa with my dad. We were both in the living room watching football, and on came a commercial from Apple for a personal home computer. My dad and I both looked at each other and said, who in the hell would buy a computer for their house? Cut to a few years later. A commercial comes on for bottled water. And my dad and I were like, we looked at each other and thought, well, this is ridiculous. Who would buy bottled water? It's for free out of the tap. So anyway, Dad's long gone. Thank God, Dad, you did not invest in the stock market. Thank God. Um, but I'm going to give a flip side to that too. I lived in Chicago for many years, and when gambling became legal, I went to a gym with a lot of young guys went there, and they all came out of the closet as gamblers. So I would give them my little hot picks of the week. I didn't gamble on them myself, so I had no skin in the game, but I would give them to them, and I had a success rate of about, I'd say, 60 to 65%, pretty dang good. And these guys started to call me the guru. So with all of that, let's jump into my thoughts on college football week one. So let's start off with Clemson at Georgia. Now, usually you would think, wow, what a matchup, to start off. Not really. Clemson is not that good, and Georgia is. Clemson is a 13-point underdog. The game's in Atlanta. Georgia will win this game, certainly, and I think they'll cover the spread. They'll cover the 13. That's a lot of points. I think they'll cover it. Next, we're going to look at Penn State going on the road to West Virginia, and Penn State is a 8.5-point favorite against West Virginia. This is not an easy task for Penn State. However, I think Penn State's going to be pretty good this year, and I think they're going to rise to the occasion here out of the gate. I'm taking Penn State, and I'm giving away the 8.5. I think they're going to cover. Next up is Miami at Florida in the Swamp. This one to me is one of the easier ones. Florida's certainly going to win this. Miami gets 3 points. I'm taking Florida, giving away the 3. Next up is the best game, or the most marquee game of the weekend. I also think it'd be the best. That is Notre Dame at Texas A&M, College Station, Kyle Field. I want to make a point here for you real quick about Notre Dame, okay? Notre Dame, when I look at their schedule, it's one of the easiest schedules in college football, period. When I looked at it before last week, I saw this game against Texas A&M. I saw the game coming up in, I think, early November, Florida State at home, and then at USC in the Coliseum at the end of the year. And I thought, okay, those are 3 games they they could have something on their hands. Well, take Florida State off that danger list after their performance last week. So now you've got 2 games for Notre Dame. To me, Notre Dame is in the college football playoff, period. No matter what happens in College Station Saturday night. So, anyway, Saturday night, they go in front of a raucous. I've been to Kyle Field in College Station. It's one of the most craziest atmospheres I've ever been to in my life. These people don't sit down. They do all these chants. They're nuts, okay? It's a tough place to play. And that's why I'm giving the edge to Texas A&M. It's simply because of Kyle Field. That's the only reason I am. So Notre Dame is a 2.5-point underdog here. I'm giving Kyle Field 7 points. So I'm going to go slight edge here to Texas A&M at home at Notre Dame, and I'm going to give away the points. Now, I would put this one in light pencil because I'm not thoroughly confident on this one, okay? But if you made me choose, which I have to on here, I guess, Texas A&M, give away the 2.5. Then last but not least, we have USC and Sin City against LSU. USC has lost a lot. USC lost, of course, Caleb Williams. USC has lost a lot of defense. LSU also has a lot of questions on defense. USC was 8-4 last year. USC was really not that great last year, and USC is in for a surprise this year, and it's called tenacious defenses, something they've not faced on the Pacific Coast. They're in the Big Ten this year, as you know, and they're going to face off against some tough defenses, and it's going to be a problem. But they get a good taste of an SEC defense in LSU, and it's going to be the reason this game tips to LSU. So I'm taking LSU in Sin City, and I'm giving away 4.5 points. USC's getting 4.5 points here. I'm kind of surprised it's that high, but I'd still give it away and take LSU. So if you're going to the game in Vegas, hey, you know, you can order at the same place your bet, your hot dog, and your beer. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the games this week. I also had mentioned that on these installments, I may now, every now and then, throw in a movie thought or a tip or review. Also, something on music. Again, no politics here, never. I did on a previous installment talk about the movie Kingpin from 1997. Love the movie, it's hilarious. Now I'm going to talk about music, and I'm going to talk about a group that anybody over 40 is going to go, Pat, duh, we know who they are, like some great find here. And even if you're younger, you may think that too. But I want to highlight them, okay? Because they've been gone for a long, long time. That's the Doors. That's Jim Morrison. And I have a little personal story connection to the Lizard King, the madman of rock and roll, Mr. Jim Morrison. I was at a party at a friend of mine who was a professor at DePaul University. This is about, I think, 2005. There was a lady there, and she was a professor of music at DePaul University. She was also, in a previous life, in the late 60s, early 70s, she worked at Elektra Records in Los Angeles. Now, Elektra Records, at that time, the two big stars were two of the craziest, wildest people in rock and roll, Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison and the Doors. Janis, I'm not going to go into her here, but she was not crazy, okay? I mean, brilliant on stage, gave everything she had, all out rock and roll, okay? Kind of Tina Turner a little bit before her time. She was the real deal. She also drank a lot and she took heroin. And she was a charter, one of the original members of the 27 Club. Which means she died real early. So anyway, this lady knew Janis, and when I brought up Janis, she goes, This lady said I could cry right here thinking about Janis Joplin. She goes, she was the sweetest human being. She goes, I knew she was troubled, she was lonely, that she had a lot of sadness in her life. She had been made fun of and bullied as a school girl throughout Texas. In fact, she went to the University of Texas and was voted the ugliest man on campus. So anyway, she got out of Dodge and found fame in San Francisco. The rest is history. Unfortunately, in 1970, it all came to an end. So this woman loved Janis. So then I brought up Jim Morrison, and her expression completely changed. And she goes, well, I don't really want to speak ill of the dead. As you know, Jim Morrison died in a bathtub in Paris in 1971 in somewhat strange circumstances. I think, look, the guy just drank all the dang time and took drugs. And I think that's the story. By the way, a lot of these people die in the bathtub, whatever. Make of that what you will. Anyway, but they put out, in 4 years, the Doors put out 6 albums with some great, great songs. Now they had some B cuts that were kind of bad, but mostly their albums were varied and they were top notch. And that's good for 4 years to put out that kind of production. So if you ever listen to classic rock, you're going to hear the Doors, but so if you're over 40, you're certainly going to know who the Doors are, but you may not have listened to them in quite a long time. I would invite you to revisit the Doors. I don't care what age you are. If you're younger and you don't know who the Doors are, maybe you've heard of Jim Morrison, check him out and particularly look on YouTube when he performs. This guy would be a superstar today. He had a real dangerous quality to him. I think he's the original wild man of rock and roll. I don't think anybody's touched him since. But I want to mention some of my songs of the Doors that are my favorites, okay? And I think a lot of people don't know them, but they're just my favorites. So first off, Light My Fire. Okay, come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set my world on fire. Okay, that's my attempt to be Jim Morrison. And then touch me, babe. Can't you see I am not afraid? Okay, that's Touch Me. I'm going to quit singing. Okay, I'm sure you'll be grateful for that. Another song called When the Music's Over. It's about the end of an era. Really could have been about them. Also, a song called The End. Also could have been about them. Great song, lasts about 8 minutes. Riders on the Storm. They also have a song called The Crystal Ship. It's really a love song, and it's a beautiful song, and it does not get played much. Check out The Crystal Ship. And then last but not least, the last hit that the Doors ever had, it's a 7-minute fueled rock and roll odyssey called LA Woman. And I love it. It changes tone and beat. It's a great song. It's the only song I've ever done and ever will do in a karaoke bar. But I was in basically kind of a drug infested bar in Fort Dodge, Iowa with my cousins 7 years ago. So I thought, hey, LA Woman will fire up this crowd, okay? So it certainly did. They liked it. So anyway, give it a roll. It's a great song. So anyway, that's my pick of music, and certainly my picks for week one. Feel free to comment. Please subscribe. If you want to find me on YouTube to subscribe, you can just type in Gay Sports Fanatic, a space between the gay sports and the fanatic, or you can do hashtag Gay Sports Fanatic, no spaces. I'd really appreciate it. You'll get alerted. Next week's going to be a big week with college football week 2, great games, and of course, the NFL is back. And also, I'm going to look at US Open tennis. So, thank you, you guys. Over and out. The Gay Sports Fanatic. Thank you for your time.